Hello students, welcome back to class 8. Today we are going to understand the second chapter of your Mulberry English course book. The chapter name is Michelangelo, which is written by Sampuran Singh Karla. Now I want you all to open up page number 32 of your textbook, and before proceeding with the chapter, let us learn more about the author. Well, Sampuran Singh Karla was born in the year 1936. He is better known by his pen name Gulzar. He is known for the poetry in Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi and other languages. He is an acclaimed lyricist for Hindi cinema along with being an accomplished director. He has won recognition for his contribution to Indian literature as well as to Hindi cinema. Interestingly, before he became a reputed writer, Gulzar worked as a car mechanic. Students, now we will see the details of the story written by him, that is Michelangelo. Well, the events described in the story do not necessarily reflect the facts of the lives of the artists mentioned. Some facts given in this story can also be different from the real incidents. Well, let us do this exercise given in the beginning of this chapter in your textbook. So here you have to match the names of the pieces of art given in column A with the names of the artists in column B. You may pause this video for some time and guess the correct answers. Well, the painter or the artist of the painting Mona Lisa is Leonardo da Vinci. The painter of the tragedy is Picasso. The painter of Starry Night is Van Gogh. And the painter or the artist for a woman with a parasol is Monet. Now it's time for us to proceed with the chapter Michelangelo. Children, in this video I have covered half of the explanation of this chapter, and in the next video we will see full story. Well, let me give you some details about Michelangelo. See, the full name of Michelangelo is Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni. I can't even pronounce it correctly as it is an Italian name, and in English he is known best as Michelangelo. Well, Michelangelo was born in the year 1475 and died in the year 1564. He was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect and poet of the High Renaissance, and he was born in the Republic of Florence, and Florence is a city in Italy. Now, he is the one who exerted an unparalleled influence on the development of Western art. Several scholars have described Michelangelo as the greatest artist of his age and even as the greatest artist of all time. He is the best documented artist of the 16th century. He sculpted two of his best known works, the Pietà and David, before the age of 30. Despite holding a low opinion of painting, he also created two of the most influential frescoes, that is, the painting made on the moist plaster surface. Frescoes means the painting made on a moist plaster surface. So he created two most incredible frescoes in the history of Western art. These frescoes include the number one, the scenes from Genesis on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, and number two as the Last Judgment on its altar wall. Well, the meaning of altar is a special table in a church or a temple where special religious ceremonies are performed. So students, I have already introduced you to the main character of this story, that is Michelangelo, and the other protagonist of this story is Pope Julius. Well, Pope Julius was the head of the Roman Catholic Church and ruler of the Papal States from the year 1503 to his death in 1513. Pope Julius is nicknamed as the Warrior Pope or the Fearsome Pope. Now, this Pope Julius has appointed Michelangelo for a special task, that is to paint frescoes. I already told you the meaning of frescoes is paintings made on moist plaster surface. Now, the task given to Michelangelo was to paint frescoes of important events from the Bible on the walls and the ceiling of Sistine Chapel. So now, what is Sistine Chapel? Let me tell you, the Sistine Chapel is a large chapel in the Vatican City. It is a residence of Pope Julius. Chapel means a residence. Chapel is a religious place to worship. In a particular house, in one of the house, in one of the corners of the house, we have one particular place, religious place to worship, and that is called as chapel. So, Pope Julius has given this task of painting the walls and the ceiling of Sistine Chapel to Michelangelo. So, this Sistine Chapel is a large chapel in Vatican City. It is renowned for its Renaissance art, especially the ceiling painted by Michelangelo, and it attracts more than 5 million visitors each year. It is one of the famous tourist attractions in Rome. Now let us move to the highlights of this chapter. So here we are going to see that the task of painting the Sistine Chapel is being given to Michelangelo, and the task is given by Pope Julius to Michelangelo. Initially, or in the beginning, Michelangelo refused to paint because he wanted to devote his time to sculpture instead of painting. But a request from the Pope is hard to turn down, so Michelangelo eventually gave in. In his 30s, Michelangelo would work on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel from the year 1508 to 1512. It took Michelangelo 4 years to paint the frescoed ceiling in the Sistine Chapel. The artist worked between the years 1508 and 1512 on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Children, now let us understand the chapter Michelangelo in detail. So, the story begins with Michelangelo. It is 4 years now for Michelangelo to return from Florence, which is a city in Italy. Rome, where Michelangelo is living at present, has begun to bore him. It means now Michelangelo is in Rome, which is another city in Italy, and he has got bored in Rome because Michelangelo says to Pope Julius that he couldn't find faces in Rome. All the faces look alike there, and so he is bored and unable to complete his carving and painting. On this, Pope Julius asked Michelangelo what he sees in Pope's face. On this, Michelangelo replied that he sees a burning candle in Pope's face. And Pope replied that it means Pope is also like that one candle that burns at the altar along with another 1,000 candles. And Pope continued to say to Michelangelo that he has given the task to him of painting the important events from the Bible on the walls and the ceiling of Sistine Chapel. But now it is 4 years and still Michelangelo is unable to find the face of Judas, and the work is nearly done, and only this, the last judgment, the only face of Judas is remaining to paint and to carve. But Michelangelo didn't reply anything and walked away. Now Pope Julius started to think about these past 4 years, that what time and effort had Michelangelo taken to keenly paint each character of Bible, like Julius remembers how Michelangelo excitedly came to Julius, telling that he found the dead man model and used it to carve a crucifixion in wood for the Church of the Holy Spirit. And for this, Michelangelo made the funeral of the dead man to be held up for 12 hours. At this point, Pope also remembers a great painter named Bramante, who also painted faces from his imagination the same manner like Michelangelo does. Pope thought to give the task to paint frescoes to Bramante, but Pope also admitted that Bramante's faces looked like as they have been emerged from a common mold and belong to the same family. So, Pope Julius left with no choice and dismissed Bramante and given the task of painting to Michelangelo. Now, students, I want you to open page number 34 of your textbook. Here the story continues. We know Michelangelo has taken 4 years to complete the painting and carving on the walls and the ceiling of Sistine Chapel. And in all these years, he used to spend hours and hours under the ceiling of Sistine Chapel, searching for the faces. He used to think to himself and mumbled to himself about that he could see the flesh and blood on the lime-coated brick and mud walls, but he is unable to find the faces of Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and Judas. He mumbled to himself that these faces are buried deep in the verses of the Bible and are hidden from him. Now, for searching the faces, Michelangelo started reading the passages from the Bible, and this was once overheard by Pope Julius. So, Pope asked Michelangelo what was he doing, and Michelangelo replied him in despair, saying that he is reading the passages from the Bible so that he may be able to find the faces of Jesus, Virgin Mary, and Judas. At this point, Pope understood that Michelangelo is upset and frustrated as he is unable to find the perfect faces, and Pope also remembers that once Michelangelo has drawn several sketches of Angel Gabriel, and Pope asked him that how did Michelangelo say Gabriel, and then he replied that he found Gabriel's voice in the Old Testament. So at this, Pope Julius had laughed and jokingly asked Angelo that he might have also heard the voice of God then. And Michelangelo had given a very wise reply to Pope, affirming that yes, he heard God's voice in silence. And listening to this reply, Pope Julius realized that he has chosen the right man for frescoes task. Well, children, here we are stopping our lesson because this is quite a big chapter and you must not get confused in the story. So let us recapitulate whatever the details we completed and understood till now. So, the story tells us about the painting of the Sistine Chapel of the Vatican City by the great Italian Renaissance sculptor and painter Michelangelo. Michelangelo frescoed or painted the chapel's ceiling between the year 1508 and the year 1512 under the Pope Julius II's patronage. As Michelangelo preferred sculpting to painting, he refused the task but later agreed on Pope's request. Michelangelo has lived for 4 years now in Rome and unable to find the faces, as he says the people's faces in Rome are alike. He says to Pope that Pope's face is like a burning candle. So Pope remembers the hard work of Michelangelo towards carving and painting the walls and ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Pope remembers why he chose Michelangelo over Bramante for frescoes task. Because Michelangelo's work is unique and not common like Bramante. Pope remembers that for finding faces of Jesus, the Virgin Mary and Judas, Michelangelo spent hours under the chapel's wall and read passages of the Bible. Pope also remembers that how Michelangelo has found the face of Angel Gabriel reading the Old Testament, and how he also heard the voice of God in silence. So these are the unique characteristics of Michelangelo that made Pope realized that he had chosen the right man to paint and carve the walls and ceiling of Sistine Chapel. Children, now I want you to read this chapter thoroughly till page number 34 and understand and learn the difficult words given at the bottom of each pages of the textbook. Well, I will continue with the remaining part of this chapter in our next video session, that is part 2 of Michelangelo. Till then, thank you, take care, and bye.